But in order for us to have a healthy community, we've got to take responsibility. That means that in Venice we're going to have to do some self-policing, and we're more than willing to do that. But we also want our policing to be healthy policing. And we understand that in order for there to be healthy policing, we've got to have healthy police officers. Healthy police officers mean that we have police officers that are not on steroids. Healthy policing means that although many of these men and women were heroes in our wars, they've come back unhealthy, and some of them are suffering from PTSD. We want them to be healthy so that they can do their job, but at first we've got to identify, who they are. So we are inviting, we are imploring, we are in fact demanding that the police commission begin to look into this issue of steroids, implement some tests. We are demanding, imploring, inviting the police commission to really evaluate their officers, particularly those that have just come home from war, those heroes, those men and women that fought for our country, that haven't been taken care of mentally and physically. Let's take care of those. That's the essence of our demands. But at the end of the day, all we want is a Venice that we can all call home. That's all I want to say. My name again is Ron Weekley. I'm the father of Ronald Weekley Jr., the young man that on August 18th, skateboarding in front of his house, was attacked and brutally beat up by the police department. They're also known as the Violent Crime Task Force. Thank you.
Worse than giving a monkey a hammer at an antique shop. That is an issue that we're not going to tolerate as a community. And recent incidents that goes on back over history to the violence in the community by LAPD officers, we need this addressed. We simply want accountability for the young people, and young people, but anyone of color, any citizen has a right to be treated appropriately. That is our position. We are in support of the family, and if we need constant surveillance, and we call upon the LAPD to come out and work with the community, to work with the family, and to look at doing some restorative justice to this family. Thank you very much, Daryl Good, NAACP. Thank you.
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
We all stand united against police violence and intimidation in our community. We stand in solidarity with the family and with the entire community, which is suffering, unfortunately, under the weight of oppression directed at it from the LAPD. Now, the LAPD probably has better things to do than beat up people of color and homeless folks and unhoused people and people who live in vehicles and all the rest. But the reality is that they act as the foot soldiers for a very small number of people who claim to represent and speak for the stakeholders, as they call themselves, in Venice. And in fact, the LAPD winds up taking the hits and paying out in the lawsuits that will eventually come from this. Now, we see in Venice a violent crime task force, a violent crime unit, which I guess they named without any sense of irony, but in fact, these people have perpetrated a violent crime against Ronald Weekley Jr., and it's something the community will not tolerate. These people were brought in from outside of the area. You know, the LAPD speaks about their love of community policing, and yet they bring in people from outside of the area who simply know that if they tackle enough people of color, someone's going to have something in their pocket. And so, as a result, they do this kind of stop and frisk or tackle and frisk policing, which is uncalled for and will not be accepted by the Venice community. I want to say specifically in this case, we notice how in Pacoima they fired the captain and they put the police officers immediately off duty. Here they won't even name the police officers, they're still on the streets. There is a clear disparity in the treatment of the two incidents, and yet they're very similar in what occurred. So we got to ask ourselves, what is it that's different except perhaps the color of the people who are being attacked?
I see we have the captain from across the street. We want to welcome you to our nonviolent, friendly Speak Out. Like I said earlier, we support the police, everything you do in the community, but we do not support police abuse. So we wanted you to know that. We appreciate the good officers that are serving the community, and we're hopeful that the bad officers that give your department a bad eye will be rooted out from the community. So thank you for being here.
I understand that the police department is open and transparent, and we're going to get through this together as a police department and as a community.
What do you have to say to the implications that some of the police officers may be under the influence of steroids? And that steroids cause aggression, are known to be causing aggression.
Certainly, I have no indication of that. Those issues would be addressed if there was any evidence to support that, but I have no evidence at this time to have any indication of that.
Do you think that the officer, well, first of all, what is the situation of the officers now? Have they been put on leave?
No, they have not.
And typically that's what happens. I'm asked why not?
It depends on the totality of the circumstances. Each incident is looked at individually, and based on those circumstances and the facts of that, the command will make a decision on that. Again, the officers don't work for me, but again, those decisions have already been made. And
well, an infraction is not punishable by imprisonment, so you can't arrest somebody for an infraction, which means you can't resist arrest for an infraction. Penal Code 19.6. Infraction is punishable by a $250 fine maximum, so they're in violation. Resisting arrest cannot be the first charge in instrument. Period. End of story.
Again, there's an independent personnel complaint investigation that is going to review all those facts of the actual contact and the arrest and the conduct of the officers. I obviously cannot comment on that because it's a personnel investigation that's being handled by Professional Standards Bureau.
But you have LAPD that makes statements about the vehicle code that are incorrect. I've had LAPD officers tell me, you know, I'm a pedestrian on a skateboard, tell me to ride with traffic.
I can't comment on that. I wasn't there to...
And I've had them write a ticket that has the incorrect vehicle code on it. LAPD doesn't even understand the correct vehicle code. I've been stopped multiple times. I'm a person of color, handcuffed and searched for life. I've done nothing. I have no warrants against me or anything. It is very clear that they are targeting people of color. You know, they have no. In some cases, in one particular case, I requested and I treat them with respect. I address them as officer. I look at their badge, Officer Johnson, or you know whatever in your case, you know, Captain. But they do not reciprocate. Instead, you know, they insult me. They as they got back into their police cops, they said, "You thief!" And they said I was wearing and I filed complaints. You know, I filed complaints, but the complaints go nowhere. They're going through this process, but the reality is that the LAPD is unable to police itself. That's why the federal government had to get involved, and I think that's still true. And so, as a result of these complaints, LAPD simply comes back and says, well, we don't find that there's a problem, you see. And that is the root response is what he's saying.
Again, the LAPD takes every public complaint very seriously. In the comments of the gentleman, I don't know your name, I'm sorry, what is your name?
My name is Keith.
We will take a public complaint, and I will ensure that it gets investigated. We take all public complaints, regardless, and that's our policy. That's always been our policy. So I can't speak to what he's telling me because I just don't have those facts. But again, if you're saying it's based on color or race, that is a biased policing complaint, and there is zero tolerance for that, and that will be investigated by Professional Standards Bureau.
What is the public complaint against Ronald Weekley Jr. exactly?
The public complaint?
Yes. What is the complaint filed against him? The charging instrument, sir?
He was initially stopped for a vehicle infraction, a pedestrian in the roadway, and was subsequently arrested for 69 PC.
Is that a jailable offense?
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
69 PC is
explain what 69 PC is, please.
69 PC is resisting an officer.
You can't resist
with force.
and you can't be arrested for an infraction. I'm sorry. 19.6 Penal Code.
Can you quote that part?
They're not arrestable offenses. You can't resist for being not arrestable offense.
A pedestrian in the roadway.
Yes,
you know.
I believe it's 21956A of the vehicle.
It's an infraction. You cannot be arrested for an infraction.
Okay. So your claim was that you have people walking in the roadway, entering their vehicles. You know, I mean, pedestrians are allowed in the roadway. Isn't that true?
Not if they're impeding the flow of traffic and causing a hazard, absolutely not.
So what you're really talking about is impeding the flow of traffic.
I can't get into the specifics of the case. As I've said before, it's under investigation, and those investigations will come out.
What you're saying is
judging the clock.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions for me?
Just a question in regards to that. The gentleman brings up a point. If I don't know the technicalities of that, but if it's not an arrestable offense, he was not resisting arrest.
Exactly.
Can you respond to that? I don't know what the facts are.
Again, I can't speak to those facts. Those facts are under those.
He's not answering.
You're our employee. Pardon me. You know, we want to have an answer. You work for us.
When somebody is legally detained, okay, legally detained, the officers have the right to use force if they
beat him up and stuff?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Captain Johnson.
It feels as though a community that's supposed to be protected and served,
People don't realize that
they're simply asking, well, who are these men and women who are paid to protect and serve us? And no one can tell us. You know what I mean? And so that's a little offensive on some level, right? Because the fundamental question is, well, why would people be in our community that no one's willing to identify or can identify?
Remember, because it is now turned into a formal personnel complaint, we are under certain rules as it relates to the police officer bill of rights, the releasing information.
You're covering it up.
There's a felony charge against my son is 69 PC, a felony. Our demand, our position is that those charges be dropped immediately. And then from there, you know, we're going to open up this issue called police serving and protecting. The Venice community asserts the right to reclaim that concept. We reserve the right and reclaim the right to define that concept, because we who are being protected and served ought to define it, we ought to assign it, and we ought to hold those responsible for it responsible. So that's the process that we're going to go through.
What does your son have to say in all this?
Well,
what does he say to his father?
You know, there's just one question my son has, and that's why. Why? I mean, his position is why. Why me? Why this? Why is it happening? Why in my community? Why does it happen to the homeless? Why does it happen to a lady in Simi Valley? Why does it happen to a homeless man? Why does it happen to human beings?
As a question, as a father.
Yes.
I'm sure you feel helpless because you weren't there to protect them.
I was, as they were taking my son away in the car, the window was down before they rolled it up, because they rolled it up so I couldn't hear him. But my son was hollering, "Help, Dad, help! Dad, help me, help me!" Right? And there is no worse feeling on the planet than having your child cry for help and you can't help him. So that doesn't feel good. It fills you with anger, right? But after anger has to come thinking. And after thinking has to come planning. And after planning has to come action. And we're at the point where we're acting now.
Thank you very much.